So welcome everyone to our lovely session today, and thank you so much for joining us. I've been involved in this understanding of the mind for 11 years, and I have been involved in human performance in sport as a national athlete and as a national coach for the last 30 years. And yeah, it's been quite a journey, because if I'd have known then what I know now, I would have had a much nicer time of being an elite athlete, and certainly as a national coach as well. So I am on a mission, if you like, to help sports people to cross this spiritual bridge to sporting excellence, as I call it, and to learn to play freely. And that's my brand, and has been for the last couple of years. And I am writing a book called Play Freely in Sports, Spiritual Truths to Enhance the Lives of Sports People at all levels of the game. So I am really delighted to have our special guest with us today, Dr. Dicken.bettinger. And you all know Dicken probably. I think just one might not know Dicken. But this is going to go out on recording as well. So Dicken and I think, met also around the start of my journey here with the 3 principles. And it was back in the days when 3PGC had events kind of around the world. And I remember going out to Minnesota a couple of times and to Westlake in LA. And the first generation of 3 principles speakers, the people that really knew Sid well, I just got to know them. And Dicken, I have to say, is one of my favorite speakers and friends. So if I can hand over to Dicken, and he will introduce himself. Thank you.
Oh, it's wonderful to be here. I can't think of a better way to start my day than to meet with some people and talk about our capacity for well-being. Nothing more rewarding in my life is to help people find what they need to have insight into in order to have higher levels of well-being in their life, no matter what you're doing or what your circumstance. So I just did a 4.5-hour program for refugees, war refugees in Africa. The state of mind has become something people are intensely curious about as more and more people see the connection between state of mind and how well we do in life, irrespective of what's going on outside of us. And I became a psychologist because I had been teaching high school and I had so many kids coming to me to talk about their problems. I became passionate about discovering what people can learn that will help them have an easier time given the challenges people often are facing. And I was only interested in well-being from the get-go. I was not interested in looking at people as if everybody is a walking mental illness. I was interested in well-being. I found universities that train psychologists in the education department as opposed to the psychology department, with the philosophy that if people are having difficulty with anything, it's not their fault, and they just haven't learned what they need to learn to have an easier time of things. And that continues to be my philosophy. So I don't consider myself so much a teacher as a student. I am still learning. There's no end to levels of well-being. It's not like someone could say, I couldn't possibly be any more loving, any more creative, any happier, any more alive in the moment. That's what I love about studying about this, is the mind is not just the brain, but it has a capacity that's far greater than we have ever imagined. And people are interested in how can we access greater capacities in whatever we're doing. And so that became my line of study. I've had the fortune of teaching people from all over the world. I do seminars in countries around the world. I spent 16 years teaching state of mind based on these same spiritual principles in big business in the United States. I worked for 15 years with one of the largest companies in the world, multi-billion-dollar company, and then I've worked with little startup companies and nonprofit companies, and I've worked with people in jail. I've worked with people in who have been struggling with addictions, and because every human being is walking around living in the world of thought moment to moment. And so anything we learn about how the mind works is going to help us have an easier time no matter what we're doing. So that's my passion. I continue to do everything I can to help bring this message globally to kids of all ages. That's it. That's what I'm about. I wrote a book called Coming Home, uncovering the foundations of psychological well-being. It's been translated into 10 languages so far, and a couple more on the way. Because people are interested, very interested. How can I get more out of life, out of my relationships, out of my work, out of my day-to-day satisfaction of life? Yeah, it's always my favorite thing to explore with people. So thanks for showing up.
One of the areas that I've been working with is the youth, like you say, working with the youth. And I love the simplicity that the youth see, and they only just need this little tap on the shoulder and they remember very quickly their playful nature. And somehow, when, I don't know, maybe around the age of 7 or 8, I'm getting young people as young as 8 starting to get troubled in their psychology, and, if you like, losing that connection to their well-being inside of them. And it only takes just a little bit of, it's okay, you're fine. And they immediately remember and reconnect with that beautiful space inside of them. So I too love working with the youth, Dicken. It's incredible. And just seeing their eyes light up when they realize that there's nothing wrong with them. And they can really resonate with just play, just playing. And there's no effort in that. They do it naturally. They find and explore their limbs so naturally. And I just love that. I'm really curious to hear from you, Dicken, about when we're inspired to do something. So like in sports performance, we're inspired to challenge ourselves and inspired to reach a particular goal. And one of the things that traditionally we work on is we work on the physical and the technical and the tactical side of things, but rarely do we look at this engine from a spiritual point of view. Why is it so important? Why is it key in terms of performance that we look at understanding our spiritual nature?
Well, my favorite topic.
Yeah.
And I think it might be fun. I can't define what spiritual is because it's beyond my intellectual understanding.
Mm.
but I can say a little bit about it because often we use that word and people have their own associations and they start thinking of the ways it can manifest. And I just want to say, when we say spiritual, we're not talking religious. We're not talking about being able to read minds or foretell the future, or we're not talking about that. We're talking about something that science has been talking about for a very long time. They say that if you look at anything in the physical world and you go deep enough into it, you come to the field of energy in which anything exists. And that this field of energy, or this quantum field, or this spiritual field, is a dynamic, formless energy. And it's out of this dynamic field of formless energy. It's dynamic because things are created out of it. Everything is created out of nothing. But that nothing is not empty. It's full of creative potential. It's full of intelligence. The physicists are saying this now, that the field of energy is full of creative potential. And that only when human beings are in a quiet mind can we tune in to that creative potential so that new and fresh is created in the moment, no matter what we're doing or where we are. So let me say this again. We're almost like a radio, and there's music in the air all the time, but you can't hear it. You need an instrument that can get finely tuned, and then you tune in just right, and the static goes away. And all of a sudden, you are able to receive the music. Human minds are just like that. It's a metaphor. I like metaphors because we're talking about something that is hard to talk about, but everybody intuits that we're connected to something greater. And everybody has had moments in their life, everybody, no exception, where their mind has gotten quiet and they've felt just everything was okay with the world. They felt connected to life. I remember as a kid, I loved playing outdoors, climbing trees, swinging on trees, jumping from tree to tree like a monkey, building forts, running through the woods. And I would be in that magical place that everybody who loves sports has experienced and would like to have more of in their life and in their work. So so I think if we're going to talk spiritual, Denise, we should just make it ordinary. And that at times when we get really quiet, we get really clear, we get really present. And then it seems like in sports, that's when the magic happens. Sports people talk about being in the flow. They talk about being in the zone. They talk about being fully present and awake and alive in the moment. And that's when you see people doing things they didn't know they could do. That's when you watch people, even in business, it's the same thing. In a quiet mind, people in business become highly connected and alive and awake to possibilities because we're open to this field of creative possibility, to deeper feelings of aliveness and creativity and inspiration, living in the, being in the zone, I could go on and on and on in talking about, in my own life and in the life of athletes I've worked with and the lives of people I've worked with in business and prisons and war refugees, as people tap into that inner quiet, always they feel better and they do better because they're guided by this deeper intelligence that's built into the very fabric of life, into the very fabric of the universe. So if we're going to talk about the spiritual dimension of life, we're meaning something very ordinary that any human being can and has tapped into. When their minds become open and receptive, they're able to receive the creation of new and fresh, that which is alive, that feels good. This is, Denise, you started off talking about kids. I just spent 5 days with my 2 youngest grandkids, 2 and 7, and they love being fully present in the moment, because that's when anybody's senses come alive. So you say a football player has good game sense. Well, it just means they're wide open to the moment, wide open, receptive. They have 360 vision, if you will. They have an intuitive sense of exactly where to be when and how fast to go and when to slow down and where to move to have the greatest opportunity without thinking about it. That's the cool thing. I didn't know we could live and perform with excellence without having to think about what we're doing. In other words, the more we quiet down our thinking mind, the more present we become, the more attuned we become, the more sensitive we become, the more intelligent we become. So I thought it would be fun, Denise, I'd like to hear how you see when you say the spiritual dimension. How do you look at that?
Yeah, I love what you've just said. I think as an athlete, I was always on the understanding that the zone state was somewhere I had to get to. And I noticed there were times when I would, after a performance, I didn't remember it. And I was just there and it just happened. It was on automatic. But then I would go, oh, that's really cool. If only I could had more of that. And then I would go chasing it. So what did I do to get into that? Even down to, what socks was I wearing? Superstition, because we go chasing this wonderful feeling that we know is it. And it is simple. Now, I thought there was me and I needed to get something in order to get into that. And when I came across the principles, I realized, oh no, Denise, you are that. When your mind gets quiet, you fall into that space, that, if you like, space of creation, from where everything comes, where everything manifests. And so it completely changed the way I perceived this zone state of optimal functioning that we talk about. And so I guess when I use the word spiritual, it's very much that which cannot be explained, but that is, if you like, I like to say running the show, but then I don't want people to get misinterpreted, but that which is making my heart beat. And at the beginning of this call, very fast. And, it's making like today I've been to the gym and it rips up the muscle and then it heals it overnight. Gives me a bit of DOMS for a little while, a little bit of aching, but it does it all by itself. I don't have to do anything. It does it. This intelligence, this know-how, this design that's going on here that I don't have to navigate. And for me, I love the word spiritual, but I also see that people misinterpret that. And I would have done that in my early days too. And for me, it is very simple. But I didn't realize how simple it was.
I think you've pointed out one of the greatest misunderstandings any athlete has, and I would expand it to say that anybody can innocently fall into this misunderstanding. People will say, when they think about themselves, they'll go, well, how am I feeling right now? Well, I'm feeling a little stressed, a little tight, but I'd like to be in the zone. I'd like to feel better. But I'm not feeling it now, but it must be off sometime in the future. So I have to figure out, how do I get from here to there? What do I do? What do I have to do? And it becomes a matter of trying. And we know that in sports, trying to get someplace other than you are right now is thinking that creates stress. So here we are trying to get to the zone, and the way we're doing it is creating more stress. And it's a huge discovery for anyone that you already have what you're looking for. You can call it clarity, you can call it full presence, you can call it the zone, you can call it innate well-being, that it's already there, always underneath the noise of all the thinking we're caught up in. So you could say the greatest block of performance is people innocently getting caught up in thinking that keeps them out of the present moment, where they have access to this intelligence that knows how to do what you're trying so hard to do yourself.
That's beautiful, Dicken.
As a psychologist, I went and heard a man who discovered the foundational principles to all human beings, that we all think, we're all aware, conscious beings. We all have a mind that's far greater than we've ever imagined. And he was the first person as a psychologist that I ever heard that said every human being has perfect well-being inside always. Even if you're in a mental institution, you're sitting in the middle of well-being. It's just the activity of your own personal thinking that gets in the way of you experiencing that. So the music is always there. We're just not tuned into it. We have to go anywhere to get it. We already have it. We are, as you said, we already are it, which is a very accurate statement. We are spiritual beings living a psychological life. We are connected to the universe that's full of creative potential, full of consciousness, full of possibility, full of wisdom, full of the capacity for living in feelings of well-being is built into it. I have to admit, when I heard someone say to me who knew with certainty that this was true, Dicken, you have perfect well-being inside no matter what. I had been spending 10 years already as a psychologist searching for how to create well-being. And all of a sudden he says, you already have it, just relax into it. It's only your thinking that keeps you from experiencing the now fully. And in the now fully, you're wide open and receptive to this universal life force that will bring you intelligence, greater awareness, greater feelings of well-being, new and fresh thinking that's helpful and responsive to whatever challenges you're facing in the moment. It was the best news I had ever heard. We're not damaged goods. So I love that you can tell kids, you are okay already, because it's true. It's not just being positive. It's true. It's true. It's like the oldest metaphor for psychology ever is clouds, blue sky, sun. Our thinking clouds up the day and gives us weather, so we feel stress, tension, upset, angry, frustrated, bothered. Behind that thinking, there's the blue sky of the now. And when people are resting in that space, you can run around full speed being fully present. So it's not a matter of sitting down and meditating. You can get into a meditative state while you're running full speed, or being in a meeting, or talking to friends, or being with people who are upset, and you can be present and open and receptive and be nourished by a deeper kind of intelligence, deeper than the intellect, more knowing than the intellect. At Harvard University, they say intellectual IQ is a very poor measure for how well people will do in life. There's an intelligence greater than the intellect, that in a quiet mind, we just feel like we're being lived in a helpful direction without having to think about it. That's why they say to people in life and death situations, stay calm. Stay calm. It's your best chance of survival. It's your best chance of doing well in this horrific situation. They never say, think yourself into a frenzy. And I've seen athletes innocently, even professional athletes that I've worked with, they get thinking and then they get lost. Then they have difficulty, all kinds of difficulty. Performance drops. Almost watch a golfer when they get caught in their head. Oh my God, performance goes right out the window. Watch a leader in a company when they get caught in their head, how they start having poor judgment or become indecisive or become little dictators innocently. Watch people in sports get caught in their head and then they start making mistakes at any level, because it's how we all work. We're all the same.
Thank you, Dicken. That's just so beautiful and so clear. When things don't go the way we want it, or we're not performing the way we want it, or the environment is not the way we want it.
This is a good part of the time, isn't it?
Good part of the time. There's it's like, okay, because so people say, yeah, but Denise, how can I see in certain areas of my life that I'm living in a world of thought, and I catch myself and can easily come back to the stillness and the clarity.
Yeah.
When it comes to something in the moment that, maybe a golf shot, or maybe an environment or a match, or that when something doesn't go the way that I want it, there's this kind of immediacy, this trigger, this immediacy of a lot of thinking. And one of the things that I learned is, oh, if it's all thought, then when I get that thinking that's giving me that feeling of anxiousness, the worst thing I can do is, if you like, buy into it, be bothered by it. So I've learned kind of one of the secrets is to just be with our feelings. It's okay to feel.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean what I think it means. It doesn't mean my skills have suddenly left me. It doesn't mean that I don't have now this capacity to close out the game. It just means that I've temporarily got caught up in some thinking.
Mm.
And if I leave it alone, it'll pass.
Yes.
And that has been my experience. But I see that sometimes in the heat of the moment, when I'm, and when players are wanting that to clear quicker, they say, well, what could I do to clear it? And that's when I think we just fall into the trap of, we then want our psychology to clear. Something's not the way we want it. Now our psychology is not the way we want it. And that's the trap for me, that we try then to start to do something about it. And if we just get behind our eyeballs and start to see, oh, you know what? I'm okay. And as soon as I know and remember I'm okay, I can come from this place of security. And as soon as I remember, my mind clears already. And it is instant.
Yeah.
So it's like, how long does it take to have an insight? How long does it take to have a realization that you're okay? Second, like a split second. So this whole notion in sports performance that it takes time for my mind to clear. In the heat of the moment, Denise, I need something real quick. No, this is quick. This really is faster than anything. The moment you remember, you're fine. You're okay. And things don't have to go the way you want it. You have this creative potential in you to be able to navigate any circumstance. One of the biggest things that I have taken from this understanding of the principles is not, and I know Sid said it and I can't remember his exact words, but not to be afraid of your experience.
Yeah.
I think he said something like, and that alone would change the world. Well,
that's right.
For me, that's just been it's been really true for me. Like, okay, it's fine. You could be getting a little anxious here, but that's fine. You're always okay.
Oh, this is a very, very helpful and important point for anybody to understand. Okay, let's say you have two people, person A, person B, and they both get caught up in thinking and get stressed. And one person immediately sees that as a friendly invitation to let go of everything they're thinking and come back to the now. And it's very interesting. The now, being in the now, is the only thing people can't do. Because if you're trying to be present, you're thinking. We're a thought away from being present at every moment. But it's very interesting. Most adults, when they start feeling tension, stress, or upset, you know what they do? More thinking, which tightens it even further. So it's only when our mind is open. So you have two people. One has an understanding about how the mind works. So when they feel upset or stressed, which we all do in sports, angry, frustrated, impatient, they see those feelings as a loving, kind, friendly invitation to fall open and receptive to this deeper state and intelligence. There's nothing else to do. Without that understanding, every time we feel stress or make a mistake or don't like what's happening, the tendency would be to do more thinking, which takes us further out of the present moment, which makes us more prone to make mistakes and have difficulty. So it's one of the most helpful things people can learn is we have a biofeedback system built into us, and tension and stress is a good thing. It's not bad. It's not wrong. It's the only way we can know we're starting to get caught up in our thinking. And it's a beautiful invitation to just come back to the present moment. Now, this person's stressed, this person's stressed, this comes back to the present moment, still feeling a little stress here. But now there's an openness that allows this deeper intelligence to right away, the sun starts right away coming through the cloud breaks, right away, starts coming through. And what does that do for this person? It gets more game sense right away, gets more common sense if we're just talking about any of us walking through life. You get more sense, so you're less likely to create more difficulty in your life, in your relationships, in your work, in your game. You're less likely to make mistakes or to create more negativity for the team. You become, as soon as we're open, no matter what we're feeling, we're less egocentric. You see people get caught up in thought. A lot of coaches are onto this now. It's okay to be angry, but if you stay angry, I'm going to take you out of the game so that you can get your head back in the game. Because if you try to play angry, you're going to play egocentrically. Now, sometimes you get angry, you open up, and that anger immediately turns into an unbelievable determination. But that determination is a positive quality. It's not. It's now an extra motivation in a positive way. But you'll see a lot of times when people get angry, they try to do everything themselves, or they don't become good team players, or they don't pass the ball. In business, people who stay caught up in stressful thinking don't make good team players, and they don't communicate very well from that state of mind. You get two people in a stressful state trying to communicate, you have an argument. It doesn't go anywhere. People get very opinionated and fight. So once you begin to learn how the mind works, stress is our biofeedback. It's wisdom's way, this deeper intelligence's way of letting us know you're a thought away from being present. When you're present, you're open to this deeper intelligence, and you're going to do fine. You're going to do fine. You won't make things worse for the team.
I love that. I love that. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
It's a powerful thing to learn. I loved your story, Denise, about how it's okay to have these feelings. You don't want to try to think your way out of them because you can. It just makes it worse. And paradoxically, without understanding how the mind works, most adults, no matter what they're doing, when they feel tension, stress, or upset, they start thinking about it. They start trying to figure out what to do, what's going on, what should I say, what should I do, how should I deal with this? And all of that thinking innocently closes our mind to our greatest resource. That's why we want to talk about the spiritual intelligence that's not of the intellect, that is right there waiting to guide us. It's not hocus pocus. It's not heebie-jeebies. It's when you're driving a car, you have to get present, and your hands keep doing this, and you're driving this huge machine so fast past other cars going just as fast the other way, and your hands are continually doing this, and you're not using your intellect to do that, are you? Without thinking about it, this intelligence will guide us. You walk across a room without thinking about it, your legs keep moving so you don't bump into furniture. It's so cool. It's an intelligence before it hits the intellect. It's thought before it gets interpreted with ideas, concepts, beliefs. When batters are in a batting slump, they all now go, I'm thinking too much. I'm thinking too much about this. Shaquille O'Neal, they used to foul him on purpose because he had so much thinking about shooting foul shots, he couldn't make any. So at the end of the game, they just keep fouling him and they'd get the ball back because he couldn't make any baskets. They called it Shaq Attack, right? And then Shaquille O'Neal had 3 coaches, and the more coaches he had, the more he was thinking about it and trying to use techniques and visualization and working on it. And he got worse, if you can imagine. And finally, he just says, screw it. And he fired all of his coaches. And they kept fouling him, but he started making his foul shots now because he wasn't thinking about it.
Wonderful.
You'll see a lot of athletes say, I have to leave my sport. I used to love it. Now I've lost my love for the game, and it's just going through the motions, and I get upset more often. And if they're fortunate, they come back to that childish, childlike, playful state of full presence. And then they come back and they say, I've got my love back for the sport. I've seen it happen time and Bjorn Borg. There have been a lot of skaters that just kept making mistake after mistake, and they kept thinking harder and harder about it and trying harder to get it right, and it just got worse. And then they lost their enjoyment because they're always thinking. You can't enjoy a sport if you're thinking about it. That's why little kids never lose their enjoyment. I watch my grandkids, they didn't stop playing and running and enjoying the whole time, 5 days, just on fire with love of the present moment.
Well,
And
Dick,
it's true, we take our state of mind with us wherever we go. So anything you learn about how your mind works is going to help you no matter where you go, no matter what you're doing, no matter who you're with. It all comes down to, in different states of mind, things go easily and flow, and in other states of mind, no matter who you are, it's going to be challenging and difficult. And understanding that allows you to navigate your inevitable ups and downs more gracefully. And that's exciting. That's beautiful to get a better sense of.
that's beautiful, Dickon. Thank you so much. The hour has just gone past so quickly. If people want to get hold of you, Dickon, how do they do that?
I have a website, 3principlesmentoring.com, or my email is just my name with a dot, dicken.bettinger@gmail.com. Or I have a YouTube channel with lots of my talks are on my YouTube channel now.